Thank you so much, John, and thank you. By the way, I wiggle a lot. I kind of walk around back and forth. And thank you all so much for being here with us. And you are really the people who I have had such great conversations so far tonight, who are really delivering our vision and our services and connecting with our residents on the ground. You're really the heroes of the company, so I thank you. And I also, by the way, John, have we ever done something like a Rose Connects, a company connects before? It was John's vision. It's a fantastic idea. And we're going to end this, by the way, asking you all your thoughts on how we can make it even better than the next time. What I thought I'd do is actually give you a history of the company, but the real point is to give you a history, the ideas behind the company, so that you can kind of see the DNA that got us to where we are today and get a sense of where we're trying to go in the future. I started in a family real estate business, a very respected business, multifamily business, a market rate multifamily business in New York City. I was a third generation developer. I grew up working on construction jobs in the center. In the summer, I then became actually a building superintendent. So I've worked my way through the whole system, working in my family. But I always wanted to do things that were more innovative. I wanted to do things that were greener. I wanted to do things that were more related to affordable housing. And I wanted to be national, and they were very much focused in New York City. So I left the company in 1989, but I took a leave of absence in 1979 because I was living in Lower Manhattan and I saw all these amazing things happening in Soho and Tribeca and the renovation of early loft buildings. And so I ended up finding a partner and buying this building, the American Thread Company building, and renovating it, and had a lot of innovations in it. One of the things we learned, and I don't know, any of you were involved in real estate back then, but in 1980, there was an enormous recession. The interest rates went to 21%, and it was almost impossible to sell condominiums, but these were condominiums and I had to sell them. And my instinct was to build an amazing community. And what I learned, and we way outperformed the market, and we were able to sell all the apartments and get through the recession. And so that was a real lesson to me in the value of that, but also I had another idea, and that was that the future of work was to be involved with data. And so this is an article about the building at that time, that's a young me, with a computer, and this is the first building in the world, so I like to say the first building in the universe, that came with an apartment, with a computer in every apartment tied to the internet. This is before the PC was invented. So it's a very, very early concept of how we were going to live and work with data. And I mention this because one of the things you're going to hear about in the next few days is something we're calling our data project. And our data project is how can we really use the data tools that we have, the RealPage software and Yardi, et cetera, to collect much more data, understand it better, and feed it back to you so that we can move much more towards business intelligence. On the way here, one of the resident managers was saying to me, why can't we just do leases on iPads? And why can't we do our apartment inspections on iPads? And why can't we do our work orders on iPads and make this all electronic and seamless and so we really know where we are, et cetera? It's exactly where we want to go. And we want to see if we can use information to both better inform you and to better liberate you to get out of the paperwork, which is a big waste of time, and more into really doing things that matter. So I just wanted you to know that's a core thing of the company. I have one slide that I prepared that somehow didn't get into this presentation. And it happens to be our current company data on marital status. And what it shows is that over 50% of our residents have no marital status. They're neither married, single, or divorced. And what that really means is we didn't get the information filled out. And so one of the things as we do this better data, one of the things we'd love your feedback on is how do we better collect the data in the easiest way? Like my theory is people are filling out all those forms. There's got to be some way to capture it without asking them another question. Okay. So the next thing, I did some other projects with my family, but then the thing that was really interesting to me was I became involved in a citywide initiative to build affordable housing. And through that, I was asked to pick any site I wanted in the city which we could make into a model project. And I picked this 26-acre site that was surrounded by mass transit, that was in the heart of Brooklyn. And Brooklyn, which is a very hip, thriving area today, back then was a real struggling community. And I came up with this vision for this project, which is called Atlantic Center, which was 640 units of green affordable housing. Nobody was doing green back in 1984. And some office towers and retail and a park and community gardens and all kinds of interesting things about it. I got it all designed. I got all the approvals for it. And then it got hit by some lawsuits, and my family that had never been involved in public-private partnerships decided to sell it to Forest City, to Forest City Radnor. And this is then the basis of the whole Forest City, New York, Brooklyn empire. They were also developed a project called Metrotech. This is not the only thing that they took over, but they took over this project. And because I felt that I could not control my own destiny, I left the family company and started my own company with just one other person. And we've grown from one person to almost 400, and you have been a big part of that growth. So partly I'm going to tell you that story. And it's kind of interesting that in the end, Forest City took over this project, and we had the wonderful opportunity to take over the affordable housing portfolio. So that was a $500 million project, very complicated, very big, and one of the things I felt like was I need to go back to the basics. So I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I built this very simple project, built out of very inexpensive technologies, metal buildings, and it was designed as a place you could live, you could work, you could retail, you could manufacture, you could do everything. We created this new zoning in which you could do everything there. It's called Second Street Studios. We still own it. It grew to be 100,000 square feet of these buildings around beautiful courtyards and gardens. And it was very, very innovative. It also, from literally the day it opened, has positively cash flowed and positively cash flows today. And that became a seed of the company. Could we do really innovative things that could experiment with new ideas that would make a difference? And the people here love this new zoning concept then spread around the country, but that also were economically viable. And that's a real seed to what we're trying to do with the company. That grew then to this project in downtown Denver. It's called the Denver Dry Goods Building. In 1990, downtown Denver was dead. We were just talking about this a little bit earlier. Literally at 5:01, all the cars would drive out, and by 5:45, literally there'd be nobody downtown. There wasn't a new retailer in downtown in 20 years. There wasn't a new housing project built in downtown. And what was happening is, as buildings went empty, and the whole downtown was emptying out, the owners would tear down the buildings and turn them into parking lots so they didn't have to pay the property taxes. This was a very beloved department store. The city bought it from the main company because they didn't want it destroyed, and then went through 4 developers who couldn't figure out what to do with it. So when I came along as my 2-person company and said, I want to do this full city block amazing project with you, that's not normally, they wouldn't normally choose like a 2-person company, but they really had no other choice. And the vision was, this is where New Right Rail was going, and so to do transit-oriented development, to do it as a historic rehab, to make it a green building, and then to mix what the real vision for the future of the city was. So this has affordable housing and market rate housing. It has office and retail, and it was done in a way, and again, we had to figure out a very complicated way to finance this. It took 23 pieces of financing. But when it was done, it was so successful that within 3 years, 22 other empty buildings in the blocks surrounding this became renovated with the same model, and that really helped turn around Denver. As a matter of fact, Denver's almost 2 turned around now. It's a very, very hot market. So a lesson that came out from this was, if you can come up with a new innovation, make it financially successful, and it can have a positive impact on a city, then scaling it can really help turn around a city. And that became part of the core DNA and goals of the company. At the same time, my goal was to make this a really green building, And back in the early 1990s, there were no green building codes, there was no LEED, there was no US Green, Enterprise Green Communities programs, etc. And so I had to invent my own green system to kind of figure out how we would make green buildings. This was called the 10 S's, and it has to do with things like get the skin right. So for example, insulate your buildings properly, and a systems approach, integrate your buildings, etc. like that. So people asked me what was it like to do green buildings back then. It was very difficult. For example, there was no such thing as low VOC paint or recyclable carpet. All those things, in effect, hadn't been invented yet. So it's much easier now. I was trying to grow the company in Colorado. We were functioning at a much smaller scale. This is a 22-unit building that we built in Aspen, Colorado, called Benedict Commons. And when you look at this project, when I ask most people how many units per the acre do they think it is, they say 15 or 22. This is actually 88 units to the acre. And this is, so it's very high density, but it doesn't look it. This, by the way, is the north side, and the south side there's a beautiful courtyard, and another part of our green principles, small windows on the north side, very large windows on the south side, bringing in the sun to naturally heat the spaces. But the point was that this doesn't look like low-income housing. And by the way, this is the building that's 25 years old now. So what we learned was what we call density by design. We want to develop higher density, but we need to design it well so it looks like it fits into the community, really looks good. There's a lot of reasons why people opposed affordable housing in the past, and one of them is it was ugly, and another one is that it brought dysfunctional populations off into their neighbors. And these are actually valid reasons to oppose affordable housing. And so we became committed to really doing beautiful buildings and then figuring out how something you're seeing in the Community of Opportunity program, how to really create thriving communities that are in addition to their neighborhoods. I began working back on the East Coast. This is the renovation of an old convent in Yonkers, New York, again in a very poor neighborhood, into housing for homeless people with AIDS. And it was the first housing that said AIDS is an immunodeficiency disease. It's a disease where people are very vulnerable to health impacts, and so we're going to design a non-toxic environment. Nobody in the green building, they were talking in the green building where they're talking about energy efficiency, but very few people were talking about how do you create healthy indoor environments. We really focused on non-toxic materials, and what we've learned since then is, and we're rolling out non-toxic materials with the help of Tim and Lauren and others, how much the building materials impact the health of our residents. It turns out that all furniture is, the industrial, commercial furniture has fireproofing, and the fireproofing on it actually has carcinogens. And so we made our own furniture for these residents. They were homeless, they didn't have furniture that was non-toxic. Another thing we've always focused on is being transit accessible for two things. Number one, when you're next to mass transit, people can walk. It's much less expensive for them to get to work. Very low-income people in America today are spending up to 50% of their income on housing. So you know if they live in affordable housing, it's only 30%. And they are often spending 20 to 30% of their income on transportation if they or two spouses have to drive to get to work, which is leaving literally nothing left. So it's locating our projects, and almost every new development project we've done has been next to mass transportation, really makes a difference. This is in Irvington, New York. Another interesting renovation. I tried for a really long time to get this project, and the community did not want affordable housing. But the community did have a problem. They had a beautiful library that everybody loved that was too small, needed to move somewhere. So we made a partnership. We brought the library into the ground floor. And as soon as we did that, the community completely turned around, because what it did is it reframed the affordable housing in their mind to be a community resource just the way the library was. Put in the library and just gave them a different mental construct for the same idea. They approved the project, and it was a great success, but also it was a very early green building. At that time, I was having great difficulty getting agencies to approve the greening of affordable housing. They all said, there's such a housing crisis in America. Why should we waste money trying to make buildings green? So I had to learn how to build affordable housing for the same budget as any other budget without getting a penny more to be green, which is a very useful discipline that lasts with us to this day. But once this project was complete, I took it to Enterprise Community Partners, big national not-for-profit, by the way. Ron Ratner's on the board, I'm on the board of it. It's an amazing organization. Does a lot of great public policy work, brings low-income housing tax credits, etc. And Enterprise adopted this idea. I sold them on the idea of green affordable housing, and they launched a national program called the Enterprise Green Community Program with $555 million. Make a long story short, since affordable housing is all subsidized, for new construction, they got most of the states and cities and banks that invest in affordable housing to require Enterprise Green, and today, 75% of all affordable housing built in America is built green. So the lesson is this little $6 million, 22-unit project became the model for literally the greening of affordable housing all across America. Amazing leverage. There are a whole series of issues that I hope we together can change to make life for low and working class people better in America. And the lesson is we can do that. If we create great models and demonstrate it and promote it and connect it to larger organizations like Enterprise, we can bring these ideas to scale. So I want to welcome you to a platform of transformation. And what we really want is all your ideas, because we're going to test them out, we're going to see if they work. They all have to be economically positive, but if they can be positive for our residents, positive for our neighbors, and have positive on the bottom line, we are committed to scaling. And because we've had this experience where it works, we're never going to give up. So, next project in Denver was a beloved old amusement park called called Elitch's. Got closed down. We turned it into something called Highland Garden Village, another 26-acre site. This is it all built out. A mixture of single-family, townhouses and senior housing, multi-family, retail, very green retail, and we preserved an old theater and a carousel, which you'll see in this. So this is a level where we began to do mixed use, mixed income at a much higher scale. And by the way, speaking of models, there's been this funny dance between our company and Forest City. And so I hired a guy named Peter Calthorpe, I've done a lot of work with, who actually designed the original Atlantic Center. He happens to be my wife's brother. He's one of the great planners of all time, and he's done the master planning for almost all Forest City projects, including Stapleton. And so when Stapleton was being designed, they actually came to this project, measured the streets, looked at how we did the alleys, how we did the front yards of our houses and all that. And so there are seeds of Stapleton in this project. At any rate, this is a site plan of it. So our goal is to mix, in America, in the 90s and 80s, you got a lot of all the townhouses go over here, and all the single family goes over here, and all the multifamily goes over here, and we tried to mix everything up. So these are community gardens. There's a whole network of parks and gardens that flow through the project. The blue building there is co-housing. You see mixed income rental housing, townhouses, and single family houses all integrated into one mixture. It's a single family house. They're actually double the density because they have accessory apartments. This is co-housing, which is a kind of where people buy very inexpensive small cottages and then have access to much larger communal space. Community gardens that are led by volunteers throughout the project, lots and lots of different kinds of gardens, butterfly gardens. This is the co-housing common house. In the common house, people often will share meals, share daycare, library, things like that. The co-housing parking lot. Some more gardens, parks, etc. This is the senior housing, townhouses. This is the first green supermarket, LEED Gold supermarket in America, only serving healthy foods, naturally day-lit food, all from the local region, overcoming food deserts, the rest of the retail. And we really began this idea of programming our public spaces. So here's movie night in the theater courtyard, and began this real idea of social programming, which is something that through our whole Community of Opportunity program we want to grow more with you. And this couple actually met at one of our senior dances and got married, which we love. And the other thing is we took the old Carousel building and put a labyrinth, I don't know if you guys can see this, in the floor, and began creating meditative and calming, contemplative, more spiritual spaces in our projects. And that's actually another thing that I want to talk to you about, which is tomorrow morning, my wife is going to be speaking to you, not because she's my wife, but because she's a leader in what's called contemplative-based resilience. So in the work that we're all doing, we're facing an enormous amount of trauma and stress. We're facing it in our own lives because of the violence that surrounds our communities, the violence that some of us grew up in, the violence that our residents have experienced, and we suffer from something called vicarious trauma that we get exposed to when people come to us day after day with their issues. And my wife's career for the last 10 or 15 years has been helping people who work in domestic violence shelters and helping people who work in refugee camps with the refugees coming out of Syria and terrible places in Africa, etc., with this issue of vicarious trauma. How can you heal yourselves when you're on the front lines of work? And so she's going to talk to you about some healing methods that we hope to build further into our projects and to work with you on that. And that's another area where we really, really would love your thinking because you're on the front lines. I also began to grow the company. We began to really believe that what made great cities was their culture, health, and education. And we grew a group that started doing owners' representation, so fee development, helping groups do that. And the first project we did was called Jazz at Lincoln Center, which is the home of Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra in New York City. We did an amazing place called the Stone Barns for the Rockefellers, which is an incredible restaurant and farm that takes locally grown food and turns it into the most delicious meals. We helped a group called Windrock in Arkansas build a very green office building. I'm going to speed through these. And then we began our first investment fund in 2005 and began buying our own historic office buildings and this is in Seattle, and making them into green buildings. So we're expanding our green vocabulary from just affordable housing into the commercial space. This is the Yawn building, which is in Portland. We began working more with co-working, taking that idea of community that we've been working with our residents, and now into the commercial realm. And in all this time, because I had started out in New York City, I felt like I really had to build my reputation elsewhere, and our reputation was strong enough. And so we came back to New York, and in Harlem built the first green affordable housing in Harlem. This project named after Mayor David Dinkins. It's David and Joyce Dinkins Gardens. And it's not only with the first green building in Harlem, but it was a mix of affordable housing for families and housing for youth aging out of foster care. And you'll see in a lot of our projects an intentional mix. It had solar on the roof. We began this process here of collecting and filtering rainwater and using that for our gardens and using that for our laundries, etc. Our owner's rep business kept growing. We designed this very far out builder. We helped oversee the design and construction for Cooper Union. Cooper Union was then the New York's finest free university, totally tuition-free university. We worked with an incredible group called the Fortune Society to help them develop housing for people coming out of the prison system and reintegrating them back into society. There's so many aspects of affordable housing in which people need support. And we built the Tapestry in Harlem, which was a new construction. We were talking about it earlier. It's a 50-30-20, 50% of market rate, 30% moderate income, 20% affordable. We really love this mixed income mix. It's a LEED Gold building. It's got 24-hour doormats. It's really run like a fantastic market rate building, but it's a mixed income project. In Stamford, Connecticut, we began building the Metro Greens. We've just finished the third and about to start the fourth building in this complex. Also very, very green buildings. So what you're beginning to see now is bigger and bigger, moving from single buildings to whole campuses.
Metro Green.
Yeah, Metro Green. So, and what you can see is also we began really focusing more on the community facilities, having them being bright, having computers for the kids. This is one of the rooms. This is one of our favorite countertop materials that has recycled banana peels in it and large windows so that even smaller affordable apartments feel light and bright. We then began what is now becoming a big initiative for us, which we call bond credits, which is using taxes and bonds and low-income housing tax credits to take existing properties and significantly transform them. And we have Village Center, we're about to do Grace West, we have a whole series. There are goals to actually do 4 or 5. We just finished Autumn Ridge. We have a whole bunch that we're doing in the company. This one happened to be called Chamberlain Heights. It was a public housing project that had been closed down, and that's the before, and that's the after. And so you can, so just imagine, by the way, if you're a resident that live there, so that you're going to see a lot of our portfolio. It may not be this dramatic. First of all, the properties aren't in that bad shape, but go through this kind of transformation. We're now doing this in Atlanta, by the way, with a really bad project that's in really bad shape. That is, we're turning into a project that's in really good shape. And this is an initiative that, as I said, many of you will be involved in, is really growing. Meanwhile, we kept growing our owner's rep business. By the way, we're not doing as much of that anymore. This is a home for classical music in New York City, and this is something called the Signature Theater in New York City. We were doing master plans, and this is a master plan we did for the city of Newark. So understanding how cities work is also really important to us. And by the early 2000s, we had done a whole series of projects in Harlem and the South Bronx. We're building a whole cluster there. And so we won a competition on this long north-south site to develop. There's a global competition New York City held to determine for a new model of what would be the greenest new affordable housing. And we built this project, which was called Via Verde. Now, all the projects I've showed you to date, and even the ones I haven't shown you, all won awards. They were all well recognized. I described how some of them became models. But this one was really over the top. I mean, it won not only all the architectural awards in America, it won all the global architectural awards. It has been, it had so many people from all around the world who wanted to come see this in the South Bronx that the residents have asked that tours stop. So it is, remember I said we love mixed income, so the left side of the project is low-income rental, the right side of the project is middle-income co-op. So we've mixed 2 different ownership types and rental types. Very green, those are solar panels on the roof. The facade is really highly insulated, so it's very energy efficient. Starting with David Dinkins Gardens in Harlem, the first one green affordable I showed you. We started using a lot of passive strategies. It may be hard to see in the back, but these are sunshades, and what they do is they allow the sun to come in the winter, but in the summer the sun's higher and it goes through the shade, and so the sun doesn't go to the apartments, so they're cooler. Is that my phone or? No, somebody else's phone. Okay. So the other thing is we really feature green roofs. This is very early in the green roof field. All the roofs are early, and they're all green, and they're all connected. So there's a whole network of spaces, of connected spaces. Children's aid play area with a water area on the ground level. South Bronx is not the safest area in the world, so it's really great to have in the center courtyard of the project a safe place for kids. And you'll see we're doing that more, like I'll show you what we've done at Grace West in a minute. And then this amphitheater, it leads to this orchard, so we're really focusing on healthy food that grows pears and apples, and then community gardens. And these lead, by the way, we capture all our rainwater here and also compost all the waste to use in the gardens. And then an exercise room, and you often see exercise rooms in affordable housing buried in the basement. This one's on the 7th floor, overlooking light and bright. The apartments are also really light and bright. And we, again, on the programming side, here's a film night on the amphitheater, and those in the orchard we have Christmas trees, and families come and have their pictures taken at Christmas time with their families. I'm going to skip this. We kept growing. This is a project called Silver Gardens in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And what's interesting about this one is actually this, on the far right, it may be hard to see, but there's a solar system. So this is a very green project, LEED Platinum, and New Mexico had this thing where a tax credit where if you were super duper green, you could get a 6% tax credit, a state tax credit on top of it. And so the project was about $10 million. And it was already very green. 6% tax credit would be $600,000. We applied for it, and we spent $300,000 on the solar system. And that pushed it into the super green category. And we put the other $300,000 into an endowment that we used to pay for social services. So remember, I started the story by saying, people said to me, you can't spend more money on green because it's undermining, it's taking money away from affordable housing. So here, by spending money on green, we actually created money for social services for low-income residents. And that's one of the things we're really looking to do as we move forward in the future, is find those win-win places where making our projects greener and more energy efficient not only makes them healthier for the environment, but actually supports the creation of resources to make our residents more healthy too. We built another project in Albuquerque called Casitas de Colores, right across the street. This is in Philadelphia. By the way, all these are next to mass transit. This is literally touching the Philly North train station right near Temple University. A LEED Platinum project, also mixed income, low-income townhouses and middle-income apartment rentals, also big, bright. You see there's kind of a theme to how we design our apartments. This is in East Harlem. It's called the East Harlem Center for Living and Learning. And in this one, we built a charter school. Remember I said we're really focusing on how we can bring culture, health, and education to our residents. An amazing charter school with a group called Harlem Dream Academy. So that's the charter school, and that's the apartment building. This isn't a rendering. This is the real playground and park in front of the project. And it's got this incredible gym, and that's the cafeteria. So imagine you're living in an inner city like East Harlem, and you're looking out on this beautiful park, and it's day-lit. This is the science lab, amazing science lab. These are the apartments, community. So again, as you know, we're trying to get computers to all of our residents, computers and exercise equipment. We're focusing much more on bike riding because it saves money and because it's healthier. This is by the way, you see there's no consistency in architectural style. This is a mixed income project we built in New Jersey next to a train station in South Orange. This is a public housing project we did in White Plains, New York. This we just finished. It's the Cesura. Don't tell the current property manager, but in a year or two, this will be a Rose Company managed project, I hope. This is a mixed income, affordable market rate project with some cultural organizations in the ground floors. This is the Pierpont, which is in construction now, an 80-20 in Brooklyn Heights. This we just finished in Washington, D.C., another mixed income project. So the point is, we got lots of these mixed income projects, and this is the Metro Green. Metro Green, the last phase of Metro Green. Now, so one of the things I want to show you is here, we did a really good job with our public spaces. So many of you some of you have seen the Court Street renovation and some of the other ones we've done. We've been really focusing on how we can take the community rooms in our projects and raise them to a level. This is a package system, but this is the kind of furnishings and feeling tone that we're trying to create in our projects, which is not typical for low-income housing. It's also, by the way, all green material. And then all of our projects, as you're seeing, are getting exercise rooms. Again, we're really taking advantage of the roof terrace. I'm going to skip through this very quickly. It's a project we're just completing in Denver now, again, a 26-acre site, so we're trying to do larger and larger projects. And this one is also really focused around community health. And so this has an acre garden in the center of it, has greenhouses, has a whole green education program. But the next thing is, what we found is we can really do great things with our communities, but communities should be broader than just our projects. So one of the things you're beginning to see is how can we radiate outwards? The voting project is part of that. The amazing project we have going on, and I always forget the name of it, but in California where our residents are cooking for the homeless. Glendora, exactly. I'd love to duplicate that throughout the system. So here in this project, our residents are now organizing yoga and health and exercise in a neighborhood park. We created as part of this a whole bike system so that low-income people in the neighborhood could bike to, kids could bike to school, and the principal said, great, you did this bike trail, but our kids can't afford bicycles. So we put out a call, and over a weekend got over 300 bicycles donated, so every kid can ride to school. So while we're doing all that, we also began to grow our acquisition business, our buying of existing affordable housing, making it greener, and bringing social services to it. This is a project we did in Washington, D.C., and obviously the purchase of the old Forest City Section 8 portfolio was really critical to the growth of the company and to our ability to really expand this program. And the only reason I'm not showing you pictures of that is this is the thing that you guys all know the most about. This is a project called Squire Village. So remember I talked about how these 4% tax-exempt bonds and low-income housing tax credits could really make a difference in a project. So this is 379, thank you. Section 8 units in Manchester, Connecticut, about 7 miles east of Hartford. We renovated it, put $15 million into it, made it all green according to the Enterprise Green Community Guidelines, has solar. Now, due to Community Day, it has beautiful landscaping. We went there and did a fantastic landscaping job. But there were 1,000 residents on site and not a community service or facility. So as part of the project, we built a $2 million community center. And you're seeing also we're trying to really expand the community centers when we're doing these bond credit deals. There's only a site for a little one at Village Center in Detroit, but we're building a little community center there. So, for the 1,000 residents, we built this. And people say to me, but that looks like it's a country club, and these are low-income people. And our feeling is, yes, you treat low-income people with respect, and it's fine to have it look like a country club. We have over 30 programs there. This is English as a second language, and we just had a residents graduate from a class in English as a second language. This is computer training. We have a kitchen. In many of our projects now, we want to make sure it's with all. We're partnering with Food Share, Food Bank, Mobile Food Bank. Where was I recently? I think it was at Village Center where the Mobile Food Bank actually pulled up when I was standing there. As you know, many low-income people literally don't eat or eat very poorly a week of the month because they simply can't afford it. It's really important, particularly for all ages, young people, old people, that they have healthy food, so that's a key part of what we're focusing on. This is actually, along with that food bank comes a woman who teaches people how to cook healthy meals. These are people who never grew up eating salads, etc. A on-site health center, where a health exam room, that's another thing we're trying to build in every one of our projects now and fit into our renovations so that we can partner with local healthcare agencies, bring healthcare on-site, or in some cases, as we're in Detroit, we've been partnering with Oak Street Health to take our residents to healthcare centers, but we really believe it's essential that every resident have access to health. And then what you're going to see us rolling out is what we're calling our behavioral pharmacy. So not just prescribing drugs, but diet. So the pharmacy is move, so exercise, nourish, healthy exercise, connect, greater socialization. You're seeing the coffee hours, we're working a lot on social strategies, and B, meditation, yoga and stress reduction. all this work, as we're learning more and more about this, we're codifying, I'll talk a little bit about it more later, into the Community of Opportunity Toolkit. You've all gotten it. We really, really need your feedback on it, because one of our things is we're trying to figure out how do we grow these ideas, what works, what doesn't, and what are your best practices. You're also going to learn in this retreat about something we call Yammer. It's an internet tool, but it's a place where we really, really want your feedback. So take any aspect of the toolkit. It could be the voter registration, it could be the healthy food, it could be getting people to exercise more. We want you to post your lessons on what worked, what didn't, so that you can become a learning community. So that each one of you basically can be learning and teaching each other. Because as I started this, you're on the ground. You're the ones who are taking these ideas and making them real. You and the residents, in many ways in partnership. And we think we know what we're doing, but we don't really know what we're doing. You guys really know what you're doing. And so that's one of the purposes of Rose Connects. One of the purposes of where we're going to go forward is to take your wisdom and your experience and use it to figure out how we can do better. So, big vision. I want to give you a sense of where all this is going as a company. We're currently 15,000 units. Our goal is to grow to about 25,000. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop there, but that's where I can see how we're going to get to. So we're going to be bigger. It means there's more opportunity for you and your staff. I've already heard wonderful stories about people who started as a handyman here and then became an assistant main soup there and then became a maintenance soup there. And company growth allows all of you and your people the opportunity to move upwards. But the other thing is, I mentioned how with that little project, we were able to influence the entire affordable housing system and drive it towards becoming green. That 75% of all affordable housing is now green based on an early model that I did. So what we are going to do together on Communities of Opportunity, my goal is that 10 years from now, not only us, but every affordable housing project in America is a community of opportunity. So we got to figure out how to get there. So here's the problem. If you were born in 1940 in a bottom quartile of income, low-income family, and you turned 26 in 1966, there was a 90% chance that you'd be earning more than your low-income parents. America then was really a platform of opportunity. Even, by the way, and although America's always had racial distribution issues, and we've discriminated certainly about in workforce about sex back then, and many other things, we still had upward mobility, and African Americans who grew up as children of sharecroppers in the South moved to the North and got industrial jobs. In general, there was opportunity in America. Today, if you were born in 1990 and turned 26 in 2016, and you were from a bottom income family, there is a 70% chance you're earning less than your low income parents. We've gone backwards. We're completely going the wrong direction in America. And not only that, it's hugely distributed by location. This is a map of all the counties in America, and the deeper the red, the worse your chance of doing better than your parents are. The lower your chance of opportunity. We know that people who live in most of our neighborhoods, who live in low-income neighborhoods, statistically will live 20 years less than people who live in high-income neighborhoods. We know that the kids who go to many of the schools in our neighborhoods have a 5 or 10% chance of going to college, and people who live in the best neighborhoods have a 95% chance of going to college. So our vision is, can we take our affordable housing and connect it to education, to healthcare, to mass transportation, to job training, to community development, a whole series of resources, and make every one of our projects a community of opportunity? Can we make it so if you're a family who lives in a Rose community, you live in the best neighborhood, not in the worst neighborhood? That's our mission. That's what we really want to set out to do, to learn, to improve over the next 10 years. This is the latest new construction project that should go into construction in about 6 months in New York City. It's a model of this. It's a full city block. It's called Sendero Verde. It is 667 apartments, mixed income, starting with formerly homeless and going all the way up to 130% of area median income, whole range in between. Will be the greenest multifamily project in America, designed to what are called passive house standards. So green in effect that you almost don't need heating and air conditioning, that the rooms can be heated by the refrigerator, the lights, and the human bodies that are in it. Very, very energy efficient. It has 4 community gardens on the food side. It has a 23,000 square foot medical center with Mount Sinai Hospital. That elementary charter school I showed you, we're building the high school charter school in here with Harlem RBI. Union Settlement is providing after-school programs, senior programs. A local community partner called Akasha Network is providing arts and education programs for us. Our goal is to integrate all these ideas into one project and really see if we can demonstrate how integrating these ideas makes a difference. This is Grace West Manor, Newark, New Jersey, in a tough neighborhood, in a project we bought. When we bought it, the previous owner had really let it run down. They had milked it, and we're really invested in turning it around. In about 30 days, we closed on a bond credit financing, and we'll bring $15 million into its renovation. But I want to show you what's been happening on the ground with the residents and what a difference that has made. So it's a tower and high income, senior tower, high-rise tower, and low-income townhouses. When we bought the project, this was the community center on site. It had been boarded up. We worked with the residents. They helped us with the design. We designed it. We opened it up. It's light and bright. And then on opening day, we held this meeting with all the residents and kids and said, what do you want? Those are little squares on the table. People fill out little boxes and we cluster them. And what was really interesting is the number one thing the residents said is, of all ages, we want arts and culture. It was really, they weren't saying we don't want basketball, and they didn't say they want, although we did bring them a basketball court. We don't want video games, we want arts and culture. So we've done these amazing partnerships with the Newark Symphony, the Newark Arts Council, the museum, and many others. And we have the most amazing, thriving arts programs going on here. It's now a really safe place for kids to come. We have a kids' summer camp going on here, intergenerational. We've created a computer center. Now kids have after school access to computer and do computer homework. Again, we got the seniors out of the tower and into with the families who are in the seniors are now coaching the kids. We're bringing exercise. Remember I said move, nourish, connect, and be. We've got all kinds of movement programs for the kids. This is a yoga class. A lot of the connect socialization, as you know, when you live in really dangerous neighborhoods, people tend to just hide in their apartments and hunker down. So really bringing people out to connect. I love the arts program, and we're starting them young. This is one of my favorite pictures. And we did build a basketball area. Community gardens, again, this is something you're seeing we're doing at all of our projects. And then here we partnered with a group called Kaboom, and we built a fantastic playground. We want to do more of these projects. It was a volunteer combination of our residents and neighbors and a lot of employees from Jonathan Rose companies. And one day we all got together and we built this amazing playground. And this is one of our families that now has a place to go outside. Another thing we've been doing on our projects is we've been partnering with local police on safety. It's very hard to get people to gather. The safety is a ground from which everything grows. I mean, we think, we focus a lot on green building, a lot of social and health programs, but if people don't feel safe in their communities, none of the rest matters. So we've been focusing a lot on safety. We just did a program with New Jersey Institute of Technology where incoming freshmen, their first day in school, came and trained our seniors in how to use computers. One of the things we're trying to get people more online so that they can have access to the 21st century. Anyway, and then this is the last thing, which is these residents have radiated out to take over a local park called Jesse Allen Park. which was a very dangerous park full of drug dealers, and they're now occupying the corners and singing songs and reading poems and doing yoga in the park. And so it's radiating out from the communities, and that's part of a key part of our vision. Our really vision for Rose Companies is that we're going to do things that increase the health of ourselves, starting with ourselves as employees. I talked about we're going to be talking about employee well-being tomorrow. Make our lives richer and better. The health of our residents. We really want our residents to partner with us in this work, and then to build it out to our neighborhoods. And if we can do that, then we really can take the mini zip codes that we're in and make them the best zip codes in America. There are 2 tools we have right now. The Community Property Toolkit has just been rolled out to you. We really would love your feedback. Is it easy to use? Is it hard to use? What could make it better? What parts can't you afford? All that stuff. We can't make this dream real without your input on it. And the second thing is we're doing a company strategic plan that encompasses many of the ideas that I've talked about tonight, but that plan will be done in December, and we'll be rolling it. So we'll be doing another one of these and rolling it out to you so you can see what the overall plan is. And I want to end with this. So my real view of what our work in the world is, that we're here to make wholeness. It's actually not just an economic and a social and an environmental mission. It's a spiritual mission. And I really feel that this work of this company is at the center of my spiritual life. And to the extent that it's important for you, I'd love it for it to be part of yours. And I love this quote that says, "Making wholeness heals the maker." As we make wholeness in the world, it makes us more whole too. Thank you.